The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. One of the sort of side stories that has gotten some media attention in the aftermath of the terrorist attack in Manchester, England, is this homeless man, Stephen Jones, 35-year-old, who has been interviewed a number of times because he happened to be in the area at the time of the bomb going off. And he just went in there and basically started helping people. I mean, rescuing people. He was pulling kids away from the site of the explosion. He was pulling debris, nails and glass and whatnot out of people's eyes and all over them. And this is just a homeless guy who happened to be in the area. And yesterday, at some point, my girlfriend mentioned this story to me, and I said, oh, I'm aware of this guy. I wonder if anybody's doing anything for him. Not that anybody deserves to be homeless unless they help rescue people, right? Not because of that, but just because, hey, this is a particular homeless person that now people are aware of. Maybe somebody's going to decide to help him out. And indeed, he has now been awarded a place to live. And it's sad that that's even something that in our society is something that might be a reward for doing something good rather than something everybody is able to afford or have. But he is being awarded a place to live with free rent for his bravery. So it's a good story, but it also exposes how sad things are for many people.
Yeah, and it seems like after we have some of these tragedies, there's always stories of heroes that come out of the woodwork and run towards the tragedy rather than away from it and help out. So after the Boston Marathon bombing, there was that iconic image of a guy in a cowboy hat carrying people who had lost limbs. I'm sure,
right.
You know, 9/11, you have all these first responders, people like the firefighters and the police officers running into the buildings, and of course, many of them passed away. So, you know, it just shows that even when these travesties happen, there can be a little bit of hope for humanity in the long run.
I mean, that's basically it. It's not some great victory like now we're thrilled and it's like nothing ever happened because a homeless dude helped kids who were injured and now has a place to live. But it's something.
Yeah,
it's something.
It's nice to see a silver lining in the tragedy.
Former bricklayer who's been homeless for about a year in Manchester, England, and a number of people saw the reports about him. And actually, it was the West Ham United Football Club's co-chairman, David Sullivan, and his son who tracked down Stephen Jones through social media and offered him free rent for 6 months. What happens after the 6 months?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you would hope that within 6 months he'd be able to get a job, perhaps, maybe even through the resource that's helping him get this apartment for 6 months.
Maybe.
You know, but that seems like plenty of time to get your feet on the ground. He's only been homeless for a year.
Right.
So, you know, maybe he has some bridges in his past that he can go back to.
Yeah, this is someone who had a job and presumably given 6 months of not having to worry about where you're going to sleep would be able to hopefully get a job and get back on his feet.
Yeah, because if you don't have to concern yourself with where you're going to sleep for the night or what you're going to eat, you're able to rededicate your attention towards the next step forward in your life, which in this case would be getting a good paying job.
Yeah. Will we ever hear about this again? Probably not.
No.
Yeah. I mean, usually with these stories, we'll never find out whether he ended up getting a job or just went back to being homeless in 6 months.
I mean, unless he's like some big success story, then maybe we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. Uber. Not great news for Uber. Uber is now, they've settled with their New York City drivers. It turns out that they, for a while, were miscalculating their share of the fees paid by riders. So the ride-sharing app Uber, you call using your phone, you call a ride, the car shows up, you pay some amount. A portion of that amount that you pay goes to the driver, and a portion of that amount that you pay goes to Uber. It turns out that in New York City specifically, and I don't know why it was in New York City, I don't know why this wouldn't affect all drivers, but for whatever reason, in New York City specifically, drivers were paying the fees to Uber. Uber was taking their cut from the driver's gross rather than the net, and they were supposed to be taking their cut from the net fee of that ride, meaning that they owe what could run about $45 million in back pay based on approximately 50,000 drivers. $900 per driver, sort of on average, is what they might owe. And, you know, I use these services pretty infrequently. I would say I probably call an Uber once every 2 to 3 weeks or something like
You're
that.
also someone who has a car.
I have a car, and I also live close to public transit. So the situations where I would need, if I'm going somewhere that is not on public transit but also doesn't have great parking, that's when I might take an Uber. Or if I went somewhere on public transit, but then it's late enough that the subways are running really infrequently or not at all or something like that, then I might call an Uber or something like that.
Lots of people, if they're going out for a night and plan on drinking, it's obviously a safer option just to call an Uber back home.
And more, I'm trying not to use Uber. I'm mostly using Lyft. And sometimes Lyft is a little bit cheaper. Sometimes Lyft is a little bit more expensive. I genuinely don't know how much better Lyft is.
Yeah.
From the stories that make it into reporting, it appears as though Lyft is better than Uber and more ethical in some way. Do we really know? I don't know. I asked the drivers. A lot of drivers drive for both Lyft and Uber. And when you ask them, I never have had a single driver say that it's better with Uber. Every single one says it's better with Lyft. So I defer to them at least to some degree.
And of course, you're also against the concept of tipping, and Lyft does allow tipping, whereas with Uber, it's just kind of factored in. So just that base level, I think you would be geared towards preferring Uber.
That's why for a long time, I resisted getting on Lyft, because Lyft allows and encourages tips through the app, whereas Uber does not. Although I've been told that Uber drivers will gladly accept a cash tip. A lot of people just assume because the app doesn't allow for tipping, Uber drivers don't expect it, but I've actually been told that Uber drivers would love a cash tip, and that they get frustrated that people assume because there's no tipping option in the app, you can't tip them. But in any case, I'm trying to be on Lyft.
I wonder if this was done intentionally or if it was just an honest mistake that they made. Either way, obviously, they have to pay the back payments. You can't just get out of that. But, one shows if there was intent, I think that's a lot more nefarious there.
Yeah.
What we do know was their intention was to not stand in solidarity with the New York City taxi drivers a few months ago in response to Donald Trump's travel ban.
Yeah, so if you don't remember that story, when Donald Trump's travel ban was announced, a whole bunch of yellow cab drivers, and to be clear, I'm talking about the color of the cabs here. I realized that that could have been grammatically ambiguous when I said yellow cab drivers.
Well, not all cabs are yellow now.
Drivers of yellow cabs. Yeah, I know. There's green cab now in Brooklyn. And anyway, so they basically said, in solidarity with the protesters at JFK Airport, we are not driving people to JFK Airport tonight. Presumably not the protesters that they're going to refuse to drive there, but passengers flying out of JFK Airport. When this happened, Uber basically said, well, then we're going to go there. And they had some kind of surcharge, so it was costing even more, and sort of taking advantage of the fact that there was a mission-based sort of boycott by cab drivers of JFK Airport.
And it backfired.
And it backfired because it got really, really bad press. Lyft was able to come back and say something along the lines of, we're going to make some big donation towards the ACLU or some group that's fighting against the travel ban or something along those lines.
Hashtag delete Uber was trending all over
Yes,
Twitter.
it was. So it backfired in some micro way. Big picture, I don't think it really affected Uber's business too much. But in any case, where are you on this? How often do you use these services, and which one do you use?
Very rarely. I haven't used it off of my own phone before. Usually if it's being used within my group, it's someone else controlling the app, and I'll just get them back with cash or something, or a drink at the bar or whatever.
What do you Venmo them? A few bucks?
Yeah, Venmo them a few dollars. Yeah, but I haven't had to use it. I think you're offered like $15 free for your first ride, and it's something that I haven't taken them up on yet.
Yeah, and I think with Lyft, you can get $5 off your first 10 rides or $10 off your first 5. I don't know what it is, something like that.
Yeah, very good concept, though. I'm overall very happy with this. I would have to imagine that there's going to be more companies that start competing against Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, there's actually one in Boston.
It seems like a duopoly on the whole market right now.
There are some others. There's one in I don't know how national it is, but at least in Boston, it's called Fasten, like FASTN or maybe EN. And there's another one called Safer, SAFR, which the idea is that it's a safer ride for women. With so many sexual assault allegations that have surfaced against typically male drivers against female passengers with Uber and Lyft. There's one called Safer, where it is women drivers for women passengers. And the idea is that it's a safer riding environment for women.
You'd have to imagine there's more vetting procedures than that, though, because obviously women can sexually assault or just assault other women.
They can, yeah. But I think overwhelmingly the issues with these apps have been male drivers and female passengers. So anyway, there's others. I don't know how much of the market share they have. Very strange and disturbing story out of Denver. A Denver man has been arrested after removing a transgender woman's testicles. And when you see the headlines, like, oh, ha, it sounds kind of funny. This is insane what took place. A man without a medical license was arrested after allegedly using a surgical kit to remove the testicles of a transgender woman. This is a level of physical assault that when you see the headline, it almost sounds like the type of thing you would laugh at.
Okay.
This is like a gruesome physical crime that has taken place, and a Denver man has been arrested for it.
So you say surgical equipment. I mean, that implies that the person undergoing the procedure was okay with it, but they were not. Were they like constrained in some sort of way? Were they under
the details are not completely clear.
Okay.
The victim was the wife called 911 about 2 p.m. It's a very complicated case, and a lot of the details are still not completely clear. But what we do know, I mean, I'm having trouble even explaining the situation in a way that's not overly gruesome, because it just seems kind of pointless to do that. Apparently, this was a situation where there was a man who was not happy with this transgender person. And the only way I can describe it is this was a physical assault. I'm sort of like at a loss for words here.
We don't know if they were upset with this person on the basis of them being transgendered, or if it was just for other reasons.
It's not being reported clearly, yeah.
But it also seems as if, so this would be a man transitioning to become a woman?
No, this was a... yes. Right. It was a man transitioning to become a woman. Yes.
Okay, so usually when there's transphobic people, they want you to identify with the gender that you were born with, the sex that you were born to. So just cutting off the person's testicles doesn't seem like that would jive with what they would normally be after doing. You know, they would want them to identify as a man because they were born with testicles.
Typically, the way that a transphobic person would attack a transgender woman would be to point out that if in their particular case they still have male genitalia, that the presence of the male genitalia proves that they are not actually a woman. So this is sort of a backwards transphobic attack. Utterly bizarre story.
Yeah, I mean, it can be kind of hard to rationalize the actions that these people take.
I don't think we need to read too much into the internal logic, because once you even buy into the internal logic, you're going down a pretty dark rabbit hole already, which I think we kind of just did in a way. But in any case, maybe we will get more details about that story and find out what was the cause of this. I mean, just when you see the headline, it's not that it's actually funny, but it just sounds so outlandish and outrageous that it's hard to even understand what could have taken place. Yeah,
there's a lot of mysteries to this story. I have to find out, because just knowing that this person was not consenting to this, but there was a surgical kit involved.
Yeah.
That really raises some eyebrows, I think.
And what's even stranger is that this was what's being described as an army surgical kit.
I don't know what that is.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but
maybe a surgical kit that they would have in the army?
That was somehow available outside of an army setting or something like that? I'm genuinely not sure. It's very odd, but we'll see if the next 24 hours bring us any more clarity on this horrible story.
Hopefully we'll just have more certainty in general on tomorrow's bonus show.
Yeah. Let's go with that. That's it for today.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.